All right, I'm back once again with another video, and this time we are going to do the best 5 books that I've read so far in the year 2022. Let's get into it. And up first is a book that I read a couple of months ago, and it is by Stephen King, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors because everything that I read by this man is pretty damn good. And that's going to be Pet Sematary by Stephen King. So this book, I knew the basic premise of main character's young son at the age of 2 is hit and killed by a truck, and you can kind of glean the plot from there as far as if you know anything about this book of what lengths would a parent do, what lengths would a parent go to save their child or potentially bring back their child. This book was really, really well done. Stephen King, of course, does the whole small town America thing just so damn well. I always say that his character work is very, very strong, and he just like when you're introduced to Judd, I'll use him as an example. You know exactly who this man is. This old man that's just lived in this little country town forever, knows the ins and outs of it, knows damn near everybody and everything that's gone on for decades, and you understand this man in such a short period of time. And through his and Lewis's conversations throughout the book, you get their relationship. It feels very realistic. You understand this man's fears and his regrets, and Stephen King just does this shit so well. And I mean, Lewis Creed as a main character becomes more interesting as the book goes on, as he sort of delves deeper and deeper into this sort of crazy mentality. And obviously it's Stephen King. There's a weird, horror element to this. There's twists and turns that kind of makes the book turn from a very slow burn type family drama almost and thriller into, oh yeah, this is a Stephen King novel. Here's all the crazy horror shit and weirdness that's happening. The book definitely takes a turn at some point and never looks back. It's just the sense of dread that Stephen King puts onto a page is so well done, and it's nothing that's like, I guess it's hard to explain. Like, I don't necessarily get scared of books when I read them, but Stephen King is very good at building tension and making a scene feel creepy. He did it a lot in Salem's Lot. For example, when they're exploring in like the basement of a house, it makes it feel kind of real. Just the way that he describes the atmosphere and that feeling and sense of dread that you get that here as well. And bad things are going to happen. Something's coming around the corner. And then when it happens, you're just like, he's so good at that. But Pet Sematary was fantastic. The weird, the turn that this takes, it got me. I was like, oh my God, that's happening. Okay, cool. Yep. That's normal. And that's what I expected of a Stephen King novel. So I love this. I have genuinely loved reading all of his work so far. And I'm just looking forward to more from Stephen King. Next up is a book that I actually just finished a couple days ago, and I will be reviewing here on the channel shortly, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. So yes, I did love this book. To the surprise of nobody that's talked to me about this prior to me reading it, because pretty much everybody has praised it and said that I would love it, and go figure, I loved it. So Jade City is a fantastic low fantasy sort of gang war, multiple clans fighting for territory type novel. It's always compared to like The Godfather, and I definitely see some of that, because it's gang on gang violence. They're fighting over territory and jade production and jade trade, and just, you have the No Peak clan and the Mountain clan fighting for all this stuff. And it's got a good mix of, down to earth kind of character interactions. Because it's low fantasy, there's a lot more heavy emphasis on the characters and their dialogue and politics and trade negotiations and a lot of things that you're not going to get in like a big epic high fantasy. So I liked the sort of grounded reality of this, and to me, it fits perfectly in with an adaptation. I think something like HBO would be great for this product and not Peacock like it was going to be. So I'm kind of glad that got canceled, but hopefully it gets picked up by an HBO or potentially Amazon. Something that, you know, can show the grit and sort of veracity of what happens in this book. I love the sort of like cold open to it. I think that would make a great first episode of them opening up in the restaurant, and just that simple, you know, two low level thugs essentially trying to drug somebody and steal their jade. And obviously that doesn't go great. But the entire concept of this is really interesting. It even has some like academy chapters in this where you have, you know, students essentially going through training to get their jade as their reward and sort of like graduate to become, you know, a fist in the army. And or, you know, a full jade warrior. It's just really cool, the concepts here. And it ended in a way that you can tell tensions are rising, the conflict is not over, stakes are high, and, you know, one of these clans is going to win out one way or another. And it was a great read. And I'm excited to continue to Jade War because, I mean, based on the title, I know that shit's going to go down and it's probably going to get a lot more violent. And I'm looking forward to it. Next up, we have a sci-fi book by probably one of my two. I'll say Pierce Brown and Christopher Rocchio are my two favorite working sci-fi authors to date. So I'm going to, of course, be talking about Kingdoms of Death. So this book, of course, is excellent, because Christopher Rocchio knows how to write a damn good space opera. I've absolutely loved Sun Eater since I jumped into it. I've been having live chats with Leanna. Her channel's linked down below, where we, you know, go into lots and lots of spoilers for several hours about these books. I love it. His writing style is fantastic. His perfect blend of poetic language and simplicity when necessary. He's kind of mastered that really early on in his career. I feel like it's hard to be this good out the gate, and everything that I've read by him in this series is just fantastic. I mean, even the short stories in Tale of the Sun Eater, you know, volumes 1 and 2, The Lesser Devil, even though it's a much lesser, you know, no pun intended, story, it's still really well done. Just these main books, though, holy shit, they're fantastic. Like they never feel drawn out or over long. I want more, honestly. The twists and turns and mystery and just mind fuckery that he puts on the reader is so much fun. Hadrian is an excellent character to follow, and I love the storytelling mechanism of introducing you right away in Empire of Silence to him as an old man, and he's retelling his life in a story, and you're slowly getting deeper and deeper into this, you know, series of events where the war just keeps escalating and getting bigger in scale, and there's more planets involved, and there's more factions involved, and the Cielsen, you know so much more about them at this point, and the whole like time bending aspect of like people going in and out of fugue, and, you know, standard years passing, and characters that you've met in book 1 are probably long gone and dead because they're not essentially superhumans like Hadrian are. You know, all of these Palatine people and other races that live for hundreds of fucking years, like, there's just so many cool concepts. I love that it's not just a thematic, like, I'm just going to make you think about a lot of stuff, and there's no plot or anything, and the characters are just there because you have to have characters. I like that it's not that kind of sci-fi, and it's blended really well into the fantasy genre, where you have this big sweeping epic tale happening. You're following interesting characters. You have, you know, entire languages created for these monstrous races of the Cielsen. And just all of the technology and the blend of, like, I love how conceptually it's very similar to Dune. And I think a lot of writers do this because hand-to-hand combat is really interesting. So you have the whole, like, if everyone just had lasers and would just die immediately, like, it wouldn't be cool. So we have to invent shields that block lasers. Then you have to have a reason to have swords or lightsabers, basically. He essentially has a lightsaber. It's just, I don't know. I love it. I love the dialogue in this. I love the violence in this is excellent. The large scale battles, fantastic. Character work, great. The mystery and sci-fi just is so captivating and interesting. And it's just one of my favorite series to read right now, at least until Red Rising comes back next year, which we do have a date for now. But we're also getting another book in this series later this year, and I'm sure that will be in my second half of best reads in 2022. So I can't wait to continue this series, and for however many books he goes, I'm along for the ride. Next up, I actually read this a couple months ago, and I had already binged the entire TV series on Netflix with my wife. Absolutely loved it. Did fall off a little bit toward the end, but nevertheless, The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell. So this is the only historical fiction, historical fantasy, whatever you want to refer to it as, that I've actually read. And it is, of course, brilliant, because this man, damn, can he write. This never really feels like you're just reading a history text. It's so epic. It's obviously pulling a ton from real history. Uhtred, of course, is very non-existent. I believe he's loosely based on Uhtred the Bold, who was a real person, but much like a lot of people, they take certain liberties with characters and timelines. There's not a ton of detail in a lot of these different things that happen. Pulling from the same like Saxon stories, there's very gray accounts of what happened in some of this time, and then others you have exactly what happened, and all the stuff with Wessex and King Alfred, and just learning about this character who, you know, grew up in Northumbria and then was taken by the Danes and was raised as a Viking and then was thrust back into, you know, defending Wessex. And he's in this constant battle between, you know, being a pagan and being a Christian, which, you know, he wants to be a Viking. He's pagan. And just like, who do you fight for? Where do your loyalties lie? Bernard Cornwell does such a good job of going into all this, and the dialogue is fantastic. I love just how brutally honest people are with each other and throwing swear words left and right. You just have brilliant characters. Like, obviously you're following Uhtred this entire time, and again, it's old man Uhtred retelling a story for 13 books or whatever it is, but because he's like the facilitator for all the action and the events, you get to see all these different places and points in time and things that happen because he's kind of at the center of it. And that makes all these historical moments really interesting. And this is the kind of thing that I read this type of book or watch the show, and I want to learn more about the actual historical accuracy of these tales and what happened at the time. And that's a skill I feel like you need to have, because he doesn't completely make shit up that's like totally out there and bonkers like Vikings does that sometimes. I feel like it stays relatively true to history in a lot of areas, and obviously in some it doesn't, but it's always interesting. And, you know, battles in this are epic. Learning about the political maneuvering that you have to go through in this time, and you have to remember this is like in the 800s when a lot of this stuff happened. So just the way the trade worked, and the way that, you know, this threat of the Vikings invading all these lands and taking territories, and how you have to work with them or take them down, and just all of this is super interesting. It's a lot of fun. These books fly by. I love that they're not 800 pages, because they just kind of go quick, and then you want another one, because it's episodic in a way. And I don't know, I love these books. I love his writing. His character work is fantastic, and it makes me more interested in learning about history, which is also a added bonus. And last but of course not least, if you have seen the video that I did for World Hoppers or on Johan's channel at the Library of a Viking, I've already talked about this plenty of times. I believe, I've also reviewed it on the channel. This is my favorite book that I've read so far this year, Lives of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. So I will link, obviously, all those videos below where I've talked about this damn book, because it is fantastic. I'm not going to obviously give a full review here, as I already have one on my channel that is linked down below, but man, Scott Lynch knocked this book out of the park for me. It hit on so many notes. The plot was interesting and always changing. Loch and Jean's relationship and dialogue and their interactions were fantastic and so much fun. I related it to something like Uncharted, or, you know, any kind of like heist story where there's, you know, hijinks that, you know, shit goes sideways and you have to think on your feet, while also having this, you know, great witty, you know, comedic dialogue happening even in very serious moments. Just the the dialogue really stuck out to me. It was super strong. This book made me laugh a lot because it was genuinely funny, which is kind of rare for me reading a book. I'm not usually enjoying it in the same way that I would, a fun movie, but I felt like this was that, or a really fun game. And this is another one that I would love to see this kind of adapted into a movie. I think it would be fantastic and just a fun ride. But it's just it just kind of fired on all cylinders. And even for me, who likes a lot of action in books, there's not that much action in this. It's more of like intense sort of like chase scene situations, or like they're stealing from people and they have to get away. It's not a lot of combat, but when there is combat, it's a lot lower in scale. You don't have these big sweeping epic, fight scenes. It's more of like one-on-ones or, skirmishes, but they're so well done and gritty. And there's parts of this book that get really freaking violent that kind of unexpected. But I love this. I liked book 2 a lot as well. I didn't like it quite as much as book 1 simply because I'm not like a huge pirate fan, and there was a lot of boats and pirates stuff. But anyway, I'm talking about Lies of Loch, not Red Season over Red Skies. But so far, I mean, I want more from these characters. I mean, if this book only existed as its own thing, just a single standalone book, it would still be fantastic. I think it's wrapped up really well. And of course it does leave, an opening at the end of the book, but it's not like a huge cliffhanger or anything. Like, this could just be a standalone, and it would be fantastic and probably highly recommended by everybody as just a great standalone novel, because that's how you could treat it. And it just, I don't know. It worked for me on so many levels. I absolutely loved it. And that's the best book that I've read so far this year. And I don't think anything I'm reading currently is topping that yet. So we'll see what happens at the end of the year. But right now, that is the front runner. So that is the selection of 5. So Pet Sematary, Jade City, Last Kingdom, Kingdoms of Death, and Lies of Loch Lamora. Those are the best 5 books that I've read this year so far. But I would love to hear some of your thoughts on anything that I've read. What do you think about these? Do you hate them? Do you love them? Let me know in the comments below, and go ahead and let me know what your top 5, 10, 15, however many books you're reading. I've only read like 30 or something this year, so there's the 5 that I've chosen.